Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Tuesday, September 27th, 2016. It's January 1st, the year one AT after Trump. I guess we had the debate last night, and I actually managed to watch it live, which is remarkable. I could not stay away. I guess it's the proverbial train wreck. And Donald Trump did not disappoint in that respect. It was a wreck. It was terrible. We'll have a good time talking about it and continue to bash him for it because it was so terrible. That's my plan, anyway. I hope it's your plan as well, because that's all I've got. We'll talk to all comers about this thing. I understand. Well, let's see. The reviews are coming in. I saw someone tweet that even Corey Lewandowski said he lost the debate, which should cost him plenty of money because that would be a violation of his non-disparagement agreement. But who am I to look out for Donald Trump's business interests? And, of course, this morning I've been having a lot of fun with one of, I guess, I'm going to estimate about 25 lines that would sink any normal campaign. But, of course, it won't separate the deplorables from the man. That's not the idea. It's just a question of how much of the rest of the country either will come to their senses and decide, okay, it's time for me to vote for the only qualified person, or perhaps the occasional Trump voter who was along for the ride and who said, yeah, and for many people, this is the first true measure head-to-head, I guess, of who looks the most presidential and, how people are about optics. And this is just, this may be the last straw for some people. I don't know. We'll find out. Polling will be rolling in over the next couple of days. The Insta polling, the Snap polling, the initial responses, the focus groups, even with Frank Luntz, basically said it was a walk-away victory for Hillary Clinton. Notwithstanding the truth, Trump won the debate or some variant thereof is a trending hashtag. They're trying the best they can. The one that has me incensed this morning, and I've been illustrating with photo grabs from around the net, is the insinuation. Probably the second or third time around they got around to bashing Trump on the tax thing. He implied, well, he said outright, essentially, that had he paid his taxes, the money would have been squandered anyway by the government and, of course, by Hillary Clinton personally. She would have put on her squandering suit. That's pantsuit. I think it's the green one. When she goes squandering, and it would have been a waste anyway. That, of course, the second of the dumbest remarks that he made about taxes. The first, I think, being where he interjects, interrupting her, of course, interjects on Hillary Clinton. Yeah, that, not paying taxes, that's called being smart, which was amazing because, of course, he had. Did he do it then, or did he later on cry about, well, NATO sucks because they don't pay their fair share? NATO, of course, just answered, that's called being smart, or maybe in several different accents. They said the same thing. So I've been having fun tweeting out pictures of him in his various gold rooms in his Trump Tower palace, along with that approximate quote. It's not a direct quote, but I didn't pay taxes because you would have squandered it line. Think about the many ways in which he's squandered that money, which was really supposed to be up to us as a political entity to decide what to do with, where we would have gone with it, and who would have been defended by it, for instance. For all of his complaining about NATO, how long have we been defending Mar-a-Lago? People could be looting that any time, but no. Of course, they haven't been because, well, I guess in his mind, because I stole $150,000 from the Charles Evans Foundation that could have gone to prostate cancer research and gave it to the Palm Beach Police Foundation once. I don't know how much it takes to get them to continue to, protect your stuff, but I guess it seems to be working. No one has looted Mar-a-Lago yet. But all those pictures of Melania on the piano and him in the gold room and Melania with the gold baby stroller for Barron, et cetera, all squandered. Trump, by the way, some of the better ones, I thought. I mean, the gold ones are really striking. Great thing on Twitter. You put one of those photos in there and with the gold background, it stands out. People see it. Gets lots of retweets. Haven't figured out how that makes anybody any money. But that's just business, I guess. And I'm not good at that. But one of the more interesting photos to illustrate that is them taking the letters off of the Trump Plaza casino, the casinos that he put into bankruptcy. That was all squandered. Trump vodka and other Trump vanity brands, the steaks, the water, the airline, the everything, the university, the institute. I don't even know what else I'm missing. Well, any of that not squandered? I don't think so. And that was only, I think, the second dumbest thing that he had to say about the taxes. Third dumbest thing, of course, was to repeat the audit thing. And, Mike, I just want to make the offer one more time. I'd like to visit Judy in Hawaii. So I was thinking that maybe if Hillary Clinton, if you're out there or your surrogates are listening, if you need me to go to Hawaii to search for the IRS audit letter, and I assume it's in Hawaii. I think all the leading experts have told me that. If you need someone to go, I am willing to serve. We can make a little video out of it. It'll be a fun production, and why shouldn't I get a giant windfall once in a while anyway? And I've never been to Hawaii, and this is a good reason for me to go. I don't know if I'll find it, but believe me, your head will spin when I admit that I didn't find. I don't know. I'm not sure what will happen, but my head will spin if anybody calls me and says I can go to Hawaii. Anyway, I got a call here that says I can go to Connecticut. At least I can drive by. He won't stop me. Here's Greg Dworkin. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. You're doing a drive-by in Connecticut. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to drive through it at some point. I don't want to overstay my welcome. Is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, it'll only take you about an hour to get out of the state. So,
okay.
Depending on which direction you go, you can get out pretty easy.
I have driven through, and I did it the hard way. I think on my way driving to Cape Cod once from Virginia.
Yeah. It's a nice road. You go through 84, and you go through Danbury, and you go through Hartford, and then you can see the rest of the state and go through the Quiet Corner, and then you're out of there.
Yeah.
But did you break down and watch any of the debate? Or
I did. I
watched
watched it.
Twitter watching.
I actually watched it. I had to see some. I was 15 minutes late to it, but it turns out it was all largely the same. Although I understand maybe the first 15 minutes or so were Trump's best. So maybe I'm being unfair to the man.
If you grade from 1 to 10 or 1 to 11,
okay,
Roger Simon does. He gave Trump a 4, and that had to be for the first 10 minutes. But it was really closer to a 2. He showed up. He didn't drool. I thought Clinton was well prepared, and her facial expressions were fine. This is one of those. If you turn the sound off and just watch their body movements, you get an idea who's winning and who's losing.
David Frum was
funny thing is that Trump was low energy, low T.
He was.
Ran out of juice. By the 60th hour of a 90-minute debate, and he was for the most part terrible. Somewhere between terrible and awful. And the fun thing is listening to the spin, because the conventional wisdom yesterday was 100 million people are going to be watching this. And this is incredible and incredibly important, and it's almost a tied race if it isn't a tied race, and this is going to change everything. And then Clinton cleans his clock, and this morning is, she won, obviously, but that's not the point. Debates don't matter, and it's not really going to change the race.
Okay.
Figure that.
Yeah, that's a good claim.
I think that, a pro tip to pundits, unless you're Nate Silver, who does this for a living, don't try to figure out how it's going to affect the polls. Just write what you see, tell us what you saw, analyze the picture. The picture was pretty clear. You had an old guy yelling at a woman who got used to the fact that this is happening because she's been there, like many women, her entire career. And, he tried to interrupt her, I think, 51 times with nonsense. Oh, yeah. She had facts. He didn't. She cleaned his clock. Or as somebody else put it, I'm going to paraphrase because I didn't get the saying exactly right, but it was something along the lines of, she needs to smile more. She needs to be strong, not shrill. And when attacked, she needs to sprout wings and fly to the moon. If she didn't do that, then obviously, she didn't do everything she could have.
No.
But the funny thing is, the bar for the expectations was so high for Clinton, and she exceeded it. And the bar was so low for Donald, and he didn't cross it.
It's
amazing.
terrible. Outrageous how badly the pre-debate spin went. Everybody just laughed at it the minute it started, but he really, he failed to clear the lowest bar I've ever seen.
The line on the floor.
They dug a trench and put the bar in it and
He
covered
did
it
a
up.
line on the floor and said, "Step over this bar," and he couldn't do it.
He tripped on the paint.
It was just terrible. Now, what difference does it make? Well, again, you mentioned the focus groups.
I did.
And there were two that I saw mentioned, or they were the same one. You can never tell. Frank Luntz had a focus group and basically said that Trump tanked. And every time he tried to attack Clinton, and you step back and look, what were Trump's biggest issues? Certainly the taxes.
Yeah.
Basically, Trump told us that he doesn't pay income tax and you do. Sucker.
Yeah, that's called being smart.
That's called being smart. The veiled racism with defending the birtherism thing, which I don't think went over particularly well. And the complete outright misogyny when he attacked, after Hillary Clinton had brought it up, attacked one of his pageant winners for gaining weight. And then he went on Fox and Friends this morning and did the same thing and doubled down on it. So whether it's the misogyny, whether it's the birtherism, you have to step back and look and say the pundits who are trying to analyze this are just getting it wrong as they usually do. It's not a question of whether or not Trump's voters liked this or didn't like this. He is trailing, and the question is, what new voters did he get with his performance tonight? And the answer is none. Now, what about Hillary Clinton? Solid. She dealt with him in a way that only professionals can, only people who are used to dealing with this. She didn't get rattled at all. He didn't faze her. And her supporters are already supporting her, just like Trump supporters are supporting him. But you have a whole bunch of undecideds and third-party people. And Nate Cohen actually has a very good piece on this, where he winds up talking about exactly that. And the piece that he has there is looking at undecided voters in 2016 versus 2012. He did a whole state of the race kind of thing. And this matches, I think, some of the stuff that we've been saying on the show. My theory of the race is that Clinton goes up and down based on whether or not her soft supporters go third party or undecided, and then she gains when they come back. Trump has already stolen the undecideds that would go for him. So he did it first and then closed the gap a little bit. Now Clinton has those pool of voters to potentially get on her side, which I think she succeeded in last night, and we'll see what happens. For example, you're looking at whites with no degree. And this helps explain a little bit about the conundrum where how come Trump is doing no better than Romney and yet seems to be so close. So whites with no degree. In September of 2016, whites with no degree, 58% of them are voting for Trump. In the fall of 2012, 58% of them were going to vote for Romney. That's no difference.
None of them got any degrees in the meantime either.
However, whites with no degree. In the fall of 2012, 35% were going to go for the Democrat, who happened to be Obama, with 7% undecided. And this year, it's 29% for the Democrat with 13 undecided. In other words, the other undecided pool is twice as large this year as it was in 2012. Those are the potential voters that could go over to Clinton. If she wins half of them, she'll be exactly where Romney was. And with 58% of the white no-degree voter, Romney lost, just to remind people.
Well.
Okay, another example. Whites with degrees. I don't know what degree. What degree of white are you? But
extraordinarily white.
The degree of white people.
PhD in white.
Fall of 2012. Okay. The Republican, which was Romney, got 51%.
Okay, yes, right.
Right? And this year, Trump is getting 39%.
Okay. That's not as good.
That's not as good. Now,
It was in statistics, my PhD.
right? So, in fall of 2012, Obama got 44 to Romney's 51. And this year, Clinton is getting 46 to Trump's 39. So for the first time in a long, long, long time, the Democrat is winning the degree of white, the whites with degrees. But her number isn't that much different than Obama's, even though Trump's is a lot lower. Why? Because in 2012, this pool had others and undecideds about 5. It's 3 times that now. It's 15. She could pull from that. A debate like last night is going to pull people from that other undecided into her camp.
Yes, I would think so.
Which is why I think her lead will grow. How much? We'll see.
I hope so. He's
Same,
fertilizing
all
it.
white voters, same idea. Fall 2012. All white voters. Obama got 39, and right now Clinton's getting 36.
Ah.
Okay.
Okay.
Romney got 54, and Trump is getting 51.
Yes.
That's because the undecideds went from 7 to 13 this year. And this is how Trump could do a little bit worse than Romney, but still be in a similar position because right now Clinton's doing a little bit worse than Obama. But there's more undecideds to pull from. And all of those undecideds aren't going to stay undecided. All of those others are not going to stay other. I would think at this particular point in time, Stein and Johnson are going to start to fade as people start to get serious about who they're going to pick. And that's what these debates help do. They help focus people's attention.
Yeah. And I think, by the way, if you're ready to do it, you want to leave the third-party flirtation behind because you're outraged at how ridiculous Donald Trump is, I'll take the vote. It's okay. Don't squander anything. You know, you're being admonished not to squander. Don't squander votes. They're valuable.
Now, this is a combination of polls in this particular poll.
Uh-huh.
A group of polls that they're looking at: Roper Center, Fox News, CNN, ABC, Washington Post, Quinnipiac, NBC, Wall Street Journal. It's amalgam of trying to get a sense of approximately where things are.
Securitized and
so
divided.
The non-white vote is interesting because in 2012, Republicans got 20% of the non-white vote.
20% of the non-white vote. Okay.
Right? And this year, Trump is getting 17.
Huh.
In 2012, Obama got 73% of that, and Clinton currently is getting 68.
Not bad.
Right? And again, the other undecided voters in this category were 7% in 2012 and 15% in 2016. I have to think that particular pool of voters is going to be sympathetic to Clinton more than Trump. And again, it's another group of people to poll for. So in all of these different categories, the other undecideds this year compared to 2012 are either twice or 3 times the size of what they were. And so with that many undecided voters, that's why Clinton's numbers go up and down and up and down and up and down. They go from her to the undecideds. They go from her to the undecideds. They don't go to Trump. Clinton voters don't go to Trump. And Trump voters don't go to Clinton. And trying to portray the race as somehow a struggle to do that is stupid. And that's why the whole thing about, well, Trump was awful, but it's not going to change his voters. That's not the point. It's the other undecided voters that we're looking at here.
Yes. I hope there are fewer of them, and I guess we'll see. It'll take a couple of days to see any results at all.
But meanwhile, what do we have? We have PPP polling with one of the snap polls last night. Voters nationally say Clinton won debate 51-40. We have CNN ORC. Clinton wins debate 62-27, or as Wolf Blitzer would say, statistical dead heat there. The whole idea of these focus groups, where I think something like 16 out of 22 Alonsis people said Clinton, and 6 were drunk and said Trump. The whole idea of these focus groups and snap polls isn't that's what people are going to think 2 weeks from now. I actually think it's going to get worse for Trump as this goes on because of his doubling down about the beauty pageant.
Yeah, that's not going to help.
You know, stuff like that. But the point is that it puts a damper on the idiot punditry analysis.
Yes.
That tries to say, well, you know, I thought Clinton won, but I'm going to change my goalposts in terms of what matters. Yesterday it was all about the debate. Today, well, it would have been huge if Trump won, but Clinton won as expected, so it's a big deal.
Yeah. I love the snap polling for that reason, chiefly.
Particularly if it's overwhelming. I mean, if it's iffy, it doesn't really help. It would
have been so infuriating not to have that this time, and to have seen that debate and then watch the pundits say, well, both of them spoke English. It was good. He made a few points. She really was weak on it. Which they did anyway, I guess. But to present this as a close call, or to say Americans are basically evenly divided, would have been ludicrous.
It would have been, and that's not what they're doing.
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of Morning Joe this morning. It's fascinating. They are so broken by the primary and the fact that they predicted wrong. They are afraid to try to actually do analysis. Nicole Wallace was a perfect example. Republican, worked with the McCain-Palin campaign. And she says, listen, if you're looking at it as a political professional, there is just no question that Clinton exceeded expectations, hit it out of the park, did everything right. A stellar performance from a political professional's point of view.
Yeah.
Did hit her goals, hit her marks, did everything and more, way more. And I don't know if it matters. What do you mean it does? You don't matter? Well, it's not going to change Trump voters' minds. That's not the point.
Yeah, right.
Everybody who was discussing this, whether it was Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, clearly Clinton won. Their problem is they don't know if it's really going to affect the polls. Mika was even saying, I'm afraid Trump is going to go up because of this. Because I don't know why. I'm just afraid. And so that's what happens when the primaries break you.
Yeah, I
break
guess
your
so.
spirit, and you just can't,
That's true.
Can't do analysis, which is what you're paid to do.
Well, yeah, that's a
Except
problem.
for them. They're just paid to be, in Trump's camp, in the tank for Trump.
They don't really have to, worry too much about that. I guess no one's really looking to them for that kind of analysis. But you make a good point here that it may just be that people are broken by the results of the primary, where every time some disaster, or what should have been a disaster, befell him. He created it himself, and he lit the fires, and he would light the fuse on one of these ridiculous bombs of his, and people would watch his polls go up. But the universe was different then. That is to say, he was working on Republicans. Will you crazy idiots, come over here and back me? And now, this is what everyone was talking about. This was the reason people kept saying there's got to be a pivot, and then there was no pivot.
Well, but all of that, again, I think is, part of the grieving process. The shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. They're in the depression phase. They're grieving for the Republican Party. They had this image, which was never correct, but they had this image, which died, of the Republican Party being a reasonable, small government, you can argue about issues kind of party. And what they learned in the primaries, that's not true. It's a basket of deplorables mixed in with a basket of low information voters who really aren't interested in facts and want an alpha male.
That was the outcome. And I guess there were a lot of people who hid behind that.
Their vision of the party, and they're still reeling from that. And they're depressed about it, and that's what is hindering their ability to analyze, because they act as if they're the majority party, that group that they had in mind that didn't really exist. And it turns out, number one, it didn't really exist. Number two, they're not the majority.
Yeah.
Which is why, by the way, Clinton is ahead in the polls.
Okay. I will accept that as an explanation. I guess, the way you say it, it makes me think about the function of the party for a long time was to try to put something like a respectable face on the weird amalgam of issues that the Republicans had cobbled together. And the job became harder and harder as the issues became less and less about either true conservatism or social conservatism even, or fiscal conservatism certainly. And as they had to stuff more and more garbage into this bag, it just became harder and harder to contain it. And then they nominated Trump, and the thing just popped, and there was no amount of no kind of veneer that they could put on this, and they didn't want the veneer. The people who were backing them said, "Please, no, we don't want anything to do with that." That's establishment garbage. We want to beat up immigrants, and we want that to be the platform. And we hate various ethnicities. And we're sick and tired. What they were sick and tired of with the Washington politician things turned out to be the effort of party officials to package that somehow as small government and low taxes and local control, and it just became more and more ridiculous until it exploded, and yay, I guess I'm glad for that.
Right. There are voters who want an alpha male and don't want to vote for a female. There are voters who want to return to a mythical white America that may or may not have existed. Maybe in their communities they did. There are voters who are simply upset with the economic conditions and life in their small towns. There are voters who don't like the trade deals. There are voters who are mad at Washington for blocking everything, even though it's the Republicans that are doing it, and they themselves might be Republicans. It doesn't matter. You have a whole group of people who, for various and sundry reasons, are not happy with Washington right now. And I like the analysis, and it may even have been Nicole Wallace, that Trump is the epitome of a protest vote. Who he is and what he says and what his policies are make no difference whatsoever, because you're either voting for Hillary Clinton and things as they are with a plan to fix, or you want to blow up the whole thing, and so it's Donald Trump. And Donald Trump himself doesn't matter. He's a placeholder. Yeah. And so he's going to have a certain group of people that are going to vote for him just because he's a Republican. You're going to have a certain group of people who are going to vote for him because he's the protest vote. And you can't expect either of those two groups, tribal being what we are, to really get swayed by things like debates, logic, his positions, any of that. It is possible that the one thing that might break through from the debate on that regard is the fact that he doesn't pay any income tax and thinks you're a chump for paying income tax. That might break through. Possibly. But those voters are not really going to be swayed by anything. It's that undecided group plus energizing the Clinton voters, which absolutely happened last night. Yeah. The Clinton voters were really thrilled about what happened. Yeah, and that can only be good for her because the election's coming up. Very, very good. It was great for Clinton supporters who were waiting for that. They were waiting for that moment. By the way, it's another thing that it made me think of. Well, before I even move on to that, I guess I was thinking what you were just telling me about what matters and what doesn't matter. It reminds me an awful lot of the growth of the Tea Party, and it sort of, I guess maybe that makes my point a little bit better, that just whatever it was that they were screaming about on the street corner and waving Tea Party signs, they realized that it was ridiculous, and so they would fall back, and then they would wave their pocket constitutions and insist that it was all somehow about the Constitution, because that's the kind of thing that sounds smart and pundits won't yell at you about. And if that didn't work, it's all about freedom. Right. Exactly. And so this we even have a caucus named after Trump movement seems like, yeah, exactly. And that's why all the things get that label slapped on it. And by the way, that's why it's easy for the IRS to figure out what's BS and what's not. Right. But yeah, that's what the party itself was kind of filled that function until the Tea Party blew it up a little bit, or maybe completely. That this was the sort of thing that, despite it was always the same band of deplorables, it just used to be the mission of the Republican Party to slap the veneer on it and say Constitution or whatever it was. And then the Tea Party showed that they didn't really need the establishment to do that. Just yelling the word Constitution and waving the cover of it, who knows what's even inside, was enough to do that. And so they didn't need the professionals anymore, but it was the professionals who contained this kind of ticking time bomb that is Donald Trump's mouth. And once they were pushed out of the way, I guess it was all laid bare. Right. So this piece is from First Read, and they're talking about who won the debate and guess who. But it's interesting. They talk about the preparation versus lack of preparation that Donald Trump exposed himself with. And they have a listing of the actual exchange. Trump says, you've seen me. I've been all over the place, which is true in his verbal discussion. Yes. You decided to stay home, and that's okay, appearing to refer to Clinton's lack of campaign events. But I will tell you, I've been all over. I've met some of the greatest people I ever meet within these African-American communities. They're very, very upset with what their politicians have told them and what their politicians have done. So word salad that doesn't say anything. And Clinton responds, I think Donald just criticized me for preparing for this debate. And yes, I did. And you know what else I prepared for? I prepared to be president. And I think that's a good thing. That was probably her second best line of the debate. I think her best line was a little bit more subtle. I don't have it exactly in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it came up when she brought up the idea of the beauty pageant person that Donald Trump was disrespecting.
Yeah.
And she starts to describe Donald as somebody who has supported beauty pageants, held beauty pageants.
He does.
And then she snuck in this stiletto in the ribs that made him bleed out, and he didn't even realize he got stabbed. And she says, and he likes to hang out at these beauty pageants. And I heard that and said, holy crap, she said that. She went there. This guy is so creepy. Everybody who's listening to this who understands that is going to cringe.
I enjoyed it. I didn't cringe. I jumped up and shouted, but I wanted more.
You heard that line, right? That
was,
wow.
I did. And I really felt like there was
more.
more.
He didn't even know he was hit.
She needed to hit that more, I think. I mean, I got it, and I think probably a bunch of people heard it, and I'm not sure that they all get it yet, but I have a feeling that might be a narrative to come. Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's revisited, because it would be it's not a great debate topic, unless she gets pushed there. I mean, it's entirely possible. Something like that. The fact that he's doubling down on the beauty pageant thing today, which, by the way, is an enormously important issue and always was. It's terribly damaging to the world when Miss Universe weighs a certain amount. It's good reason to have a public fight.
Right.
But I hope that he continues, as he sometimes does, to continue to make an issue out of something that he should have let lie, because it would be terrific to have the opportunity to talk about how he hangs out at the beauty pageant, how he collects beauty pageants as I guess as a business line, which is terrible, I think, in terms of
I just think the
on
image of an old guy hanging around beauty pageants
and the
one
fact
that is not going to be able to get out of your head. You can't unsee that.
And I think there's more pieces that could be added to it. We've added them here on the show, and I'd love to see people discussing the fact that he hangs out at beauty pageants, he goes to a beauty pageant, he likes the contestants, he buys the beauty pageant, which is weird, and he didn't even know that they were for sale. But then he has a pipeline of what to do with the beauty pageant. It's only one day, right? Well, now he hangs out with the contestants beforehand. By the way, he invites them to Mar-a-Lago to come to the pool.
Well, don't forget, you mentioned Trump Steaks, etc. He had a failed modeling agency.
Yes, and that's what he does with the women after the pageant. Is he invites them to Mar-a-Lago to hang out at the pool, and they all come to impress the judges, and he spends that day walking around telling them, I know you're in this pageant business to try and break into the modeling business. I have a modeling agency. Maybe you and I have something in common. We should sit down and chat. As a matter of fact, why don't you take a swim? I didn't bring a bathing suit. You did. You're a beauty pageant contestant without a bathing suit. We don't swim in those suits. They're custom made. Well, we happen to have a bureau full of bikinis, beautiful, gorgeous, classy bikinis right in here. Just go on in and change.
Made in China, no doubt.
Yeah, but be sure, by the way, stay in this room to change. You want your privacy. Stand right about here would be good when you do change. No reason. I'll be right back. I got to monitor the phone calls room to room here in Mar-a-Lago. But have a good time, and I'll be back in a few minutes. No electronic surveillance or anything of any kind. And then when that wasn't enough, he imported the
entire image brought up by hanging around beauty pageants.
Yeah. There's more work to do on that one, I'd say. But yeah, I'm glad she brought that up. I hope that registered, and if not, I will beat you over the head with it for a week.
Right. Not so USA Today had a group of columnists, some conservative, some not. But I'll just read you the headlines and then who said it. Don Campbell, I'm not that familiar with, a member of USA Today's board of contributors. Trump learns you can't win a debate with bluster. Okay, Melinda Hennenberger, a longtime political writer, member of USA Today's board of contributors, visiting fellow at Catholic University. I remember her from writing She the People over at Washington Post, and then often writes on religion as well. And her headline was Trump wanders around the lunar surface. Jason Sattler from National Memo, fact check, the audience laughed. And they did when he talked about temperament. They just laughed at him.
That was pretty good. And they're not supposed to react, of course, but, that was involuntary, I think.
Right. Ruben Navarrete, who used to write for, I think, the Dallas Morning News.
Great sandwich.
He's a USA Today Board of Contributors person, hates Clinton, and wrote, Clinton won, Holt lost.
Who lost? What?
Lester Holt.
Holt. Oh, yeah.
He didn't say a word for 10 minutes. He lost control of the debate. He was embarrassing. Even when he tried to intervene, Holt couldn't stop Trump. And for Clinton, on this night, that turned out to be the biggest blessing of all.
Yeah. That was okay.
Right, but you see, you get a sense of
mark
even the
for Holt.
conservatives not loving this. Gabriel Schoenfeld, member of USA's Today Board of Contributors, senior fellow of the Hudson Institute. Trump flails in first one-on-one. Unpresidential petulant Trump misses an opportunity from Katrina Trinko. Clinton lures convoluted Trump off message from Mark Embinder. Little Donald elevated Secretary Clinton from Paul Brandis. He did poorly. Every person you read today who's analyzing this, who isn't Sean Hannity, is pretty clear about winners, losers of the debate. That's why I think the whole, Shane Goldmacher, Clinton gets under Trump's skin in Politico. Ron Fournier, of all people, did a guest column at The Atlantic. He's moved back to Detroit, and he works for a local Detroit paper now. Right. Hillary did what she needed to do. If undecided voters were looking for an excuse to come around to Clinton's corner, they may have found it on Monday night. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Roger Simon, Trump needed to be an 11. He was barely a 4. And talks about how Trump knows how to work the room. And during the real debate, she had virtually all her talking points. She didn't hold back. Trump had started his presidential career with racist lies over birtherism, and he has a long record of racist behavior. She brought all that up, which was good.
True.
And there was only one argument, in fact, that I thought she blew, he says. I've met a lot of people who have been stiffed by you, Hillary said. Are they not owed an apology? Actually, Roger Simon says they're owed more than an apology. They're owed money.
Yes, and he loves that money.
Yeah. So I think that's all good here.
Point.
This is Karen Tumulty. Clinton goes after Trump's weakness, his famously thick skin. That's in the Washington Post. So I think, that gives you a pretty good pundit roundup idea of how all this went down, and none of it really good for Trump. And then lastly, Nate Silver, of all people, actually tries to predict how this is going to go down in the polls.
Yeah.
He's looking at the Insta polls and trying to correlate it with previous elections and figures 2 to 4 points. It's worth 2 to 4 points in terms of what happened last night.
All right.
It'll take a week to see it, but that's his prediction.
Okay.
That's what he does. If you're not Nate Silver, don't try to predict the polls. But if you are, that's what he does.
Yeah. Well, if you're not Nate Silver, read Nate Silver and then copy it. And then
You can do that. You can get a sense. I don't try to predict where exactly the number is going to be in terms of what happens in the polls. But I think that she was helped by this. She's more likely to pull in people who otherwise weren't voting for her. I think Trump was not successful at doing that. And there you have it. That's my segment for today.
Okay. Well, I will take it. It seems reasonable enough. By the way,
likable enough.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good way of putting it too. This just in from 7-Eleven. There's no debate about it. You should come in and enjoy their coffee. I get this text on my phone that just came in. So I just thought I'd let you know what 7-Eleven's take on all the debate is.
My favorite tweet right now for the next 2 minutes is from Ross Stouthat. Apparently Ted Cruz thought that Trump won the debate, and it was the best debate ever.
Well, he's got
and
his
Ross
doubt
Stouthat said, Ted Cruz may not be the best at figuring out when to buy into the market.
Not a good job there. Well, the Zodiac believes it. Speaking of good tweets, I saw this one last night. Did you see Brian Walsh's tweet about the
That's a true story. My dad's company was stiffed by Trump on a 6-figure telecom job in the 80s. Trump told him it would cost more to sue him. I believe he's a Republican consultant.
He is, in fact. And the tweet I grabbed it from was Jonathan Weissman pointing out that, wow, this is the former spokesman for the Republican National Senatorial Committee speaking.
He's a former House, Senate, and campaign GOP communicator.
He is, and he communicated
he's
pretty
now
good.
a partner at something called RockSolutions.com. Definite, solid Republican.
Yes, very rocky. So there you go. I couldn't really have encapsulated it better, that there are Republican operatives out there vouching for the story of how Donald Trump is a cheater and a chiseler and a cheapskate and a jackass and also a jerk. Plus he stinks.
Yeah. Kenneth Vogel writes, Trump asked about Snifflegate on Fox and Friends says there were no sniffles.
Yeah. How about that? By the way,
I think the real explanation is he had a cold, although I'm going with his low T problem made him try to inhale his testosterone and it didn't work.
that could be it. He probably did have a cold.
Before the debate, which
pneumonia.
was a mistake.
But he also, I mean, he just speaks rapidly and he kind of gasps that way.
Honestly, I think he had a cold.
Yeah, could be. There were no sniffles, though. But I do have this fantastic compilation of all the sniffles that somebody put together on YouTube. It's playing in the background. It's a good minute and 24 seconds of that and the lip
Al Gore sighing, right? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. This was Donald Trump sniffling.
Right.
Remember how that was the key that won or lost the election?
And he did one or two. And I think he even gave us an oi somewhere in there, which was
Snifflegate.
But he did a couple of these heavy sighs when she hit him on something.
Nose.
Yeah. I noticed that the sighing has been ignored. But that's only because there are 10,000 other things worse, I guess. Or also because they're hypocrites. But whatever.
Right. This is Frank Luntz, who texted this. And here, I'm going to read it to you verbatim and give you an idea of when they don't know when to stop digging, okay?
Yeah.
Text from a GOP friend of mine in Congress. I'm sorry, Congressman, but tonight Hillary is coming across as presidential. What was he texted? Let me read it to you from the GOP congressman who will go unnamed because Luntz didn't name him. She just comes across as my bitchy wife and mother.
Mom. Holy mackerel.
You cringe. It's like chalk. It's like nails on a blackboard. And you go, no, he didn't say it. He said that. He
did. And
I think they're missing something about the dynamics of at least, if not more than, half of the population who votes here.
Yeah, it was very troubling to say the least. And he may be getting divorced sometime soon, which is par for the course, really, in Washington anyway. He's probably got an attractive aide.
Well, if he is married to his mother, he should get a divorce.
Yeah, also true. There's a Greek thing about that.
Anyway, so that's the whole big picture, and, it's just more and more and more. I just can't help but think that not only was it an awful debate for Trump, it'll be clearer in the coming week as to just how bad it was.
Okay. Well, I hope something clears up for him.
And we'll see where the show takes you. This is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman. If you're listening to the show for the first time, the exciting thing now is that Dave is going to take the show in places where he doesn't even know where.
Yeah,
so
we'll
find out when we listen to it later on podcast. I have to go, so I can't listen to it live. But if you are listening to it live, thank you so much. Or podcast, however you do it. Thanks for listening. Thanks to the Netroots Radio folks for making it happen. Don't thank them enough. And Scott Anderson for putting together the summary, which you can find on Daily Kos. I'll be doing the Pundit Roundup tomorrow. Some of the stuff you heard today will appear there. And then we'll go on and see what else happens.
Okay. All right.
Stop sniffing at me.
I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Terrific. Thanks very much, Greg.
My dog Abby does a lot of that. I think that maybe she was Trump's campaign debate coach.
Yeah.
I see that
that could be.
A lot of the techniques are picked up. She's really very good at that.
Yes. Well, if Trump could find a lost child that way, I wouldn't mind so much. But
yeah, it works for Bloodhounds.
All right. Take care. All right. Thanks. You do the same. Don't get any sniffles. And we'll talk to you later on in the week when more disaster comes in. The next burning ship of disaster finally comes in for Donald Trump. Speaking of debate coaches, by the way, can I make a note for all of you? Can you not see now, perhaps for the first time, but is it somehow still unclear to you why Republicans and Rupert Murdoch and all the rest have had to, really, strategically, been forced to look past Roger Ailes' habit of raping the staff, in order to capture and hold on to, retain the man's genius. The guy is basically a miracle worker. You saw it for yourself. 60-something% of respondents said Clinton won the debate to only 20-something% who said Trump won the debate. He's being demolished everywhere. He somehow got tricked into admitting that he paid no taxes and all this. And, of course, he sniffed his way through the whole thing and talked the rest of the Republican Party into describing Hillary Clinton as bitchy mom /wife. It's pure genius. And you can see, I mean, it's a difficult thing to really to swallow as progressives, as liberals, as human beings, to say it's going to have to be okay that the boss man spends 3 or 4 decades raping the staff on a rotating basis, because look at the results he's delivering. You can't argue with the man's genius. He coached Trump, this raw lump of clay, to a clear loss last night, a demolition heretofore unseen in the annals of televised debate. So I think his record speaks for itself. Remember, this was the debate coach. This was the guy they had to put all the past aside, and all the scandal and all the filth had to be put aside in order to win, to nail this thing down. And here are your results. When are we just going to cut this guy loose and put him on trial already? This of what value is he? Unless this whole thing, he sandbagged America, and boy, is he going to come out swinging in debate number 2, if there is debate number 2. The current pre-debate spin, the current lowering of expectations. When I said they had to dig a trench and bury the bar, Rudy Giuliani, and he's not the only one, this last night and this morning, the spin is maybe Trump won't even do any more debates. And he has a record of skipping debates. I mean, just one. I suppose that's a record. But that's some kind of amazing spin. He's not even going to go to another debate, so that if he shows up, he exceeds expectations. Could we have been sandbagged? Or we set up? I don't know what they have in mind, but I guess if you still fear their strategists, and I suppose there's good reason to, I don't know what it is. I mean, it wasn't on display last night, unless this was about, having the worst possible performance so that you can come back. I mean, we did see it. It's happened before. I don't think it was strategic, but certainly in 2012, the first debate went rather poorly for Barack Obama, and then he came back and clobbered Romney in the second, and there was a narrative about comeback, and it sort of sealed it. But, that's not a tactic that's available to everyone. One, you have to be a decent debater in order to pull it off. 2, you have to listen to your coaches. 3, it helps a whole lot to be the incumbent president of the United States. And 4, if you're smart. But we're missing all of those elements here. I guess anything's possible, but I mean, Trump's idea of raging through and tearing it up and just Hulk smashing his way through the next debate would be to actually Hulk smash his way through the next debate, I guess. Possibly some sort of on-stage stunt, lighting farts. I have no idea exactly what he would have in mind, but he'd have to it would be a clear message, I can tell you that. But it would have to be in order to make this work. I just don't think so. And I think he may be better off just saying, forget it, it's all rigged, I'm leaving. By the way, that's another thing. There's going to be a lot of by the ways, I think, today, because as I remember more and more outrageous garbage fires from this thing. How about the fact that the closing question actually had to be, will you accept the outcome of this election and recognize the legitimacy of the next president of the United States? Can you believe that? And that it actually took until the last second, the last couple words of Trump's answer to know what he was going to say. He strung us along on the question of, do you accept the validity of American democracy? I don't even know really why that's not the only story, except for the fact that we're too busy, vomiting from all the other stories, I guess. Let me go into Pocket and my Twitter feed and try to remind myself of the various things that I wanted to say about this horrific display from last night. Of course, I should just continue. I'll just play the sniffs as a soundtrack to the rest of the show. It's got to be disgusting. It's interesting the way it's edited too. You hear a couple of those like lip smacks in there too. It's really actually very gross, and maybe I don't want to hear it. But Was the sound up high enough? Did everybody hear? I mean, because there's more sound I could give you. This is really good. Some of you, it's breakfast time. Maybe you don't want to. All right. Well, we'll forget it on that one. But that was. Thank you to who for doing that one. Let me. I have to click through to see the original of that, which of course will just start the damn thing up again. But it's worth doing so that we can say daily satisfaction. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. That's not a URL I would click on if I were you, if you're at work. But that's the channel, I guess. All right. A daily satisfaction. I don't know what they're about, but it's out there. And it says, welcome to our channel. Enjoy our upload and stay tuned for more fun and satisfying videos fulfilling your, to fulfill your OCD. Make sure to subscribe for daily uploads. I don't know. How's that doing? It's a good question. You know what? This is not fair. What else do they have? I'm going to take... Oh, dang. I subscribed. Unsubscribe. I wanted to see the channel. Stupid buttons. Anyway, daily satisfaction. Curing your OCD one video at a time. And it's all interesting. It's all oddly satisfying, this, that, and the other thing. Some of the popular uploads to the channel. Oddly satisfying compilation episode 1 of, I don't know what. Oddly... They're just showing goofy things that I guess would, you get the idea, satisfying OCD. An assembly line covering chocolates, they're all very neatly covered. That's nice. Somebody doing some beautiful frothed milk designs in the top of a coffee house coffee cup. I get the picture. What I don't understand is 732 subscribers. By the way, update on my own channel, where I park the videos of our podcast here, 96 subscribers. So I am less than 1/8 of the channel that has Donald Trump sniffing and people making designs in coffee designs. That is oddly satisfying. All right. Well, you will find our YouTube channel oddly satisfying, or you would if I could tell you the URL for it, which I can't because YouTube scrambles up. You get some kind of weird... I suppose you could buy or rig up some sort of customized URL so that it would be youtube.com/channel/KagroX or something like that, which it could be, but it isn't. It's instead some kind of crazy mishmash of letters and numbers. So the link exists. I made that easy enough. Anytime you see any of our morning, afternoon, evening, whatever posts, whether it's in the open threads in midday or in the evenings, or if you're looking at our podcast posts, right underneath the players, I put all that stuff, handy links for you to say, for instance, sign up for monthly supporting contributions through Patreon or through PayPal, if you prefer to pay the creepy billionaire Peter Thiel, I guess, still gets money from that. But what can you do? It's just business. But you can make monthly contributions either way, Patreon or PayPal, or if you prefer to do a one-time thing, PayPal is there. It always has been there for you to enable you to do things like that. Another of the items you will find there, of course, is a link to the YouTube channel, and it's a nice, easy way to download podcasts on the go, I find, and it helps. I think. I don't know whether anybody who's subscribed is using the subscription in any particular way. Maybe it's easy to find the channel that way, but it's one of those metrics that they like you to boost. And one of these days, we will ruin your experience of listening to the download commercial free by signing up for whatever that program is that you would use to monetize the YouTube experience as a provider of content. And I think if you got a bunch of subscribers and a lot of views on your videos, then you can make a couple of bucks charging, Clorox bleach for advertising at the beginning of each of your videos. And you got to listen to an annoying commercial, but then you would have to listen to less annoying me telling you to just donate money. And it costs you a lot less if Clorox pays than if you do, I think. Although money is all fungible. They're just charging you more for the Clorox. We understand these interrelationships as liberals. That brings me, I guess we could use that as a segue to another topic of the day, although maybe we want to hit more on the debate things. But I'll tell you what I was thinking, since we do these things stream of consciousness in a way. Let's see, where is the latest from David Farenthold? Well, it may not be the latest, but it was yesterday's thing from David Farenthold. Although once again, in the pocket view, this insists, rather than looking at the original on the Washington Post website, this insists that the post is from October 19th, 2016, which hasn't occurred yet. So, maybe it's a Back to the Future reference of some kind. Anyway, it was published yesterday. Trump directed $2.3 million owed to him to his tax-exempt foundation instead. This is a nice piece. I like it because, A, it's revealing, B, it hits Trump, and, as they like to say, 3, AB3. I think it largely validates the speculation from last Thursday's show, in which I reacted to the Trump campaign surrogate who in Des Moines, Iowa, I think it was Des Moines, it was reported in the Des Moines Register anyway, who tried to explain that Trump had in fact donated considerably more money, of his own money, to his foundation than David Farenthold had credited him for, because he often told people who owed him money for appearances or, promotional fees of some kind to donate to his charity instead. And I was trying to explain, that doesn't really cut it, because what he's trying to do here is duck in personal income, and yet, or rather, duck personal income taxes. If you owe him $400,000 for a deal and you put it in the foundation instead of giving it to him, in his mind, it's not Donald Trump's cash now, so Donald Trump doesn't have to owe personal income taxes on it. And the charitable foundation is, of course, supposed to be charitable, and so therefore supposed to be tax exempt, and so it doesn't pay taxes on it. And yet he can use all $400,000 because there's no taxes on it to in a way that inures to his benefit, because he intends to either purchase portraits of himself with the money or buy himself tickets to fancy black tie gala dinners, which is something he likes to do, or buy Tim Tebow football helmets or whatever. And there's even worse stuff out there. I don't think we even got to Farenthold's last major breakthrough, which was a fantastic one. Maybe we'll get over to that, or maybe we'll just mine this nugget out of it. He used $258,000 of the supposedly the foundation's dollars to settle lawsuits against himself personally or against his businesses, which again, using charitable donations in ways that inure to your personal benefit is a huge no-no. And he took money that was supposed to go to charity and used it to settle lawsuits against himself, usually for personal infractions and infringements against local law, and most particularly the fines that he was supposed to pay for his enormous flag and flagpole that he installed at Mar-a-Lago, which, by the way, also relates a little bit to the debate. I thought a little bit about Mar-a-Lago a couple of times. Once because he was when he was insisting, of course, I don't pay taxes, that makes me smart. I just thought it was interesting that, for a guy who insists in his pleadings of the case in the Mar-a-Lago flagpole thing, his lawyers insist he couldn't install a flagpole less than 80 feet high and with a flag any smaller than a car dealership-sized flag in stuffy old Palm Beach, because a flag of any smaller size or a pole of any smaller size would not adequately express the patriotism of Mr. Trump. So enormous is its magnitude, nothing less would do. But when it comes to the patriotism of paying the troops, let's say, or taking care of our various infrastructure needs or just pitching in as an American towards the betterment of the country in general, not interested. And that makes him smart. I just thought that was something worth pointing out. Mar-a-Lago actually figured a lot in my debate commentary. But just to fill in the blanks here, I skipped ahead already. Farenthold had this to say yesterday. Trump directed $2.3 million owed to him to his tax-exempt foundation. Instead, let's gather up Farenthold's version of the facts here. Donald Trump's charitable foundation has received approximately $2.3 million from companies that owed money to Trump or one of his businesses, but were instructed to pay Trump's tax-exempt foundation instead, according to people familiar with the transactions. In cases where he diverted his own income to his foundation, tax experts said Trump would still likely be required to pay taxes on the income. Trump has refused to release his personal tax returns, of course. His campaign said he paid income tax on one of the donations, but did not respond to questions about the others. And it was a very funny exchange, that one. That's noted later on in the piece. That gift was the $400,000 payment from Comedy Central, which owed Trump an appearance fee for his 2011, and it's in scare quotes here, roast. I don't know. They probably roasted him pretty good. Then there were the payments totaling nearly $1.9 million from a man in New York City who sells sought-after tickets and one-of-a-kind experiences to wealthy clients. That we mentioned him the other day, the wealthy ticket scalper, about whom I also have a piece tucked away, but I don't think we're going to get that deep into it. The man, Richard Ebers, bought goods and services, including tickets from Trump or his businesses, according to two people familiar with the transactions, who requested anonymity because they were not authorized to speak about those payments. They said that Ebers was instructed to pay the Donald J. Trump Foundation instead. Ebers did not respond to requests for comment. Again, Ebers is buying goods and services from Trump. Trump says, don't pay me or my business, pay the Donald J. Trump Foundation. Why? Tax exempt. Who cares? Normally, nobody, because, okay, it's tax exempt, but that's fine. You might be skipping taxes on it, although here it says tax experts say you got to pay anyway. But the idea is normally that money goes to a real charity for a real reason, as opposed to being used to inure to your benefit. If it inures to your benefit, it's income to you. Although, actually, the fact is the tax authorities say it's income to you regardless of what you do with it. If you buy a gun, shoot yourself in the foot with it, it hasn't inured to your benefit, but it's your money nonetheless. Just putting that out there. Ebers did not respond to requests for comment. How does he do it? I don't know. The gifts begin to answer one of the mysteries surrounding the foundation. Why would other people continue to give to Trump's charity when Trump himself gave his last recorded donation in 2008? Why are these suckers doing it? And the answer is he forces them to, or at least he tells them, that's the way I want to be paid. And what do they know? The donations from Ebers and Comedy Central, which account for half the money given to the Trump Foundation since 2008, the other half being, I guess, the McMahons and NBC. There you go. And a carpet store somewhere for some reason. Also provide so Ebers and Comedy Central's donations also provide new evidence of the Trump Foundation's ties to Trump's business empire. Did Trump, in fact, pay income tax in the cases where he directed his own fees to the Trump Foundation? The first time the Washington Post asked, Trump's campaign denied that any of the transactions had taken place. I didn't sniffle. I didn't say that. I didn't say anything about China inventing global warming, even though I did. Did you catch that story last night? Another stream of consciousness aside here. Hillary correctly pointed out that he did, in fact, say that global warming was a hoax invented by the Chinese. He denied it and had his staff, or somebody in the staff, took it upon themselves anyway, to delete his tweet stating that in the middle of the debate while everyone was looking for it. So there's lots of screen captures of it. It's quite hilarious. Anyway, the first time the Washington Post asked, Trump's campaign denied that any of the transactions had taken place. He's never directed fees to the foundation, said who? Boris Epstein, I'm guessing is the way you would say it. It's like Epstein, but spelled funny, which is to say, I guess a little bit more ethnically and hasn't been anglicized. I think this is just Epstein. Epstein is normally anglicized or was anglicized, say, at Ellis Island as Epstein, is now Epsh, Epstein, Epshteyn. We'll call him Epstein. Boris, okay. He says he's never directed fees to the foundation. Boris is a senior advisor to Trump who responded on the campaign's behalf in a phone interview on Saturday. Epstein said that what Trump did was provide a service, renounce any fees, and then merely suggest that the other party make a donation to a charity of their choosing. How did it always end up being the Donald J. Trump Foundation? Well, Boris has an explanation for that, too. He's waived fees from time to time, Epstein said. We're going to say Epstein? Steen? Let's try that. Epstein. He's never directed it to a specific charity. It's a terrific lawyer's answer. I don't believe it's true, but it's an excellent answer in terms of creating reasonable doubt. There's more to it later. The Post later presented Epstein with the Comedy Central and Ebers examples during the same interview. Epstein acknowledged the Comedy Central case had occurred, so he's a liar, but refused to comment on the others. To my knowledge, Mr. Trump has followed all applicable rules and regulations, Epstein wrote in an email Sunday after being presented with the Post's reporting on the donations from Ebers. The rest is pure speculation and worthless conjecture on your part. We'll see. Previously, the Post reported that the Trump Foundation appears to have violated laws against self-dealing. It certainly does appear that way, does it not? Hang on just a moment. I want to see if I can't have a tweet deck open on one of the screens here so I can monitor what's going on, although most of it is just retweets of the various Gold Room pictures at this point. But I don't want to miss out on anybody's comments if they've got something to add to this. Okay, so previously the Post reported about the self-dealing problem, which prohibits nonprofit leaders from using charity money to help themselves. That's the simpler way of saying inuring to your benefit, right? That's the technical term, inuring. In particular, Trump appeared to use $258,000, this was the reporting I was telling you about the other day, that happened the other day, $258,000 from the charity to help settle lawsuits involving a golf course and an oceanside club. Trump also spent charity money to buy 2 portraits of himself, including one that he hung in the bar of one of the golf resorts in Florida, which is to say it was being used to no charitable purpose. That's what makes it self-dealing. Well, it makes it an improper use of the funds. What makes it self-dealing is it happens to inure to his benefit. I guess. I mean, what's the benefit of having a picture of you in a bar? I guess you could argue nothing, but it's free decorating to the club. The laws governing the diversion of income into a foundation were written in part to stop charity leaders from funneling income that should be taxed into a charity and then using that money to benefit themselves. In other words, this. Such violations can bring monetary penalties, the loss of tax-exempt status, and even criminal charges in extreme cases. It's getting near extreme, but, I don't think we'll see any. Mostly because of the optics of charging a presidential candidate with a crime in the middle of the campaign. Maybe after he's destroyed and he's a private citizen again, you might see charges like that brought to bear. But even then, the optics of having the Clinton administration do it, I don't know how well that's going to play, but we'll see how destroyed he is. Epstein, in the Saturday interview with the Post, said Trump did not knowingly violate any tax laws. How could he? He doesn't know what the tax laws are. There's been no intent in any way to go against any applicable rules, laws, and regulations, Epstein said. Epstein, I'm going to try again. If you suggest it any way otherwise, publicly, it's dangerous and irresponsible, and we'll sue you for irresponsible intent, I guess, right? In an interview over the weekend, Trump offered a defense of his charity. Ready? Are you confident that the Trump Foundation has followed all charitable rules and laws? Journalist Cheryl Atkinson asked on a Sunday TV program called Full Measure. Well, I hope so, Trump said. I mean, my lawyers do it. That's that was the defense. That's amazing. I mean, that's not a defense. It's an answer. It's a reply, but it's not a defense. But okay, whatever. The Trump Foundation, though, has no paid staff. Keep that in mind. The last time it reported spending any money on legal fees, my lawyers do it, was 2010, when it spent a whopping $53 total for the year. My lawyers, did anybody think Trump's lawyers do the foundation's compliance for $53 every 5 years or something like that? I mean, that's outrageous. That's nonsense. And that's one of the things you could be using the money from the foundation for, would be to be paying overhead expenses like legal compliance. But he doesn't do that. I wonder where he pays them. He figures, you're on retainer for the Trump organization. Just do my foundation's taxes for free or whatever, and just consider it part of your retainer, which I think probably, again, one of his commingling problems. He doesn't distinguish between the various arms, which is amazing considering how adept he is at creating the various arms for very good reason, to make himself smart, to save on taxes. When it comes to saving money, he's very good at recognizing where things need to be separate. When it comes to saving money by consolidating in ways that are impermissible, he just says, it's stupid regulation that it's impermissible. Everybody knows I control all of this stuff, and it's going to get him into legal trouble. If you really looked at what he was doing and you had a free hand to actually prosecute, he'd be dead meat on a stick in a minute. But we don't have that. He'd be a political prisoner. Anyway, so far, questions about the Trump Foundation have focused on how the charity spent its money. How the charity raised money, especially after Trump stopped giving, was less understood. Last week, an employee of the Trump Organization, the candidate's private company, offered an explanation. Okay, remember, this was Lynn Patton speaking in Iowa, and on Thursday, I spent a considerable amount of time talking about why her answer was garbage. And I don't think I realized that she was I guess I did. It was in the article, right, that she's an employee of the Trump Organization. Why she's doing a political campaign stop, I do not know. And it's doable. I mean, you could do it on your off hours, but it's another problem. Anyway, she was the one who said, a lot of times Mr. Trump will give a speech somewhere, or he'll raise money in some way, and he'll ask that the entity, instead of cutting a personal check to him, cut it to his charity, said Lynn Patton, an assistant to Trump's son Eric, among other things, who is also an officer of the Eric Trump Foundation. That's money that would otherwise have been in his personal account, right? Patton was appearing at a Trump campaign event in Iowa and was quoted in the Des Moines Register. Under tax law, though, these kinds of arrangements, they even have a name for them. They're called assignment of income. A person is owed money, but instead of accepting the money, directs that it be given to another person or charity. That's allowed. But, tax experts say, the IRS generally requires that the person who was owed the money pay income tax on it. One key factor, did the person exercise control over where the money went? If the money was directed to a specific recipient, it generally counts as income. Why? Because it was controlled by the payee. The payor gives it to a charity at the direction of the payee. The payee sees the money now inure to his benefit. Therefore, hard to argue that it's not income to him. Now, Epstein tries to give a very good lawyer's answer to this later on, and it might even work. The Post asked the Trump campaign for examples of donations that matched Patton's account. That is, you owe me money. Instead of paying me, pay the Trump Foundation. The Trump campaign initially responded that Patton's account was wrong. Why? Here's why. Lynn is wonderful, said Trump spokeswoman Hope Hicks. Ready? How does she do it? Lynn is wonderful, Hope Hicks said during the Saturday telephone interview in which Epstein also participated. But she is not a spokesperson for Mr. Trump or the campaign or the foundation. Just Eric's foundation, for whatever reason. Okay, maybe we should look at Eric's foundation. After it was pointed out that Patton made the statement while appearing on behalf of the campaign, oops, Hicks responded, yeah, she wouldn't know or understand. Possibly true. She didn't get it right, or she didn't give the answer that the lawyers want given anyway. She may have told the truth, but it would have been, I guess, a Kinsley gaffe then, in that sense. What are we talking about? Instead, Epstein put forward a different explanation. Trump, he said, had never done what Patton described. Instead, I'm hearing an echo of myself. Was that maybe I need to turn down there we go. Maybe if I turn down that volume. It's not echoing, and I assume I would have seen complaints about that if that were the case. All right. Well, anyway, Epstein then has to do the lawyering. Trump, he said, had never done what Patton described. That is, he never said, don't pay me, pay the Donald J. Trump Foundation. Because if he said, pay the Donald J. Trump Foundation, and they paid the Donald J. Trump Foundation, that's control, and that's income to you, taxable. Instead, Epstein said, Trump had all along been following the dictates of an obscure 1942 court case, which he cited by name, Commissioner of Internal Revenue versus Giannini. The case, which is totally familiar to Donald Trump, involved a San Francisco bank president who had decided he had been paid enough and renounced the rest of his salary for the year. The bank gave his money to the University of California instead. The court, imagine that, the court held that the bank president didn't have to pay taxes on that money because he hadn't controlled where it went. So, is there room for this after all? Trump, Epstein said, was just like that. He had not exercised control over where his money went. Instead, Epstein said, when Trump helped someone, he never asked specifically for a gift to the Donald J. Trump Foundation, but rather suggested a gift to some charity somewhere. But sometimes, Epstein said, a gift arrived. It did arrive at the Trump Foundation. Why? He's Donald J. Trump, Epstein said, explaining why donors had chosen this particular charity. Get it? If you give it to some charity or another, I'll be satisfied. And I guess I could see in some way. I go, well, what charity should we give it to? I don't know. I don't have a favorite charity. Or really it should go to his favorite charity. What's his favorite charity? I don't know. I bet it's the Donald J. Trump Foundation. Well, hell yeah, it's the Donald J. Trump Foundation. Do you know what he does with the money that goes into the Donald J. Trump Foundation? Well, they didn't at the time. So they gave it to the Donald J. Trump Foundation, figuring that he was going to give it to the American Cancer Society, the American whatever, sniffle sufferers of America. I don't know. But instead, of course, I doubt very much whether they thought, well, here's another Tebow helmet for you and a portrait and maybe even a legal settlement with the town of Palm Beach, Florida. We'll get to that. So, which of the Trump Foundation's donations came in the way Epstein says? Who just happened to say, I don't know, out of all the charities in the world, I guess we'll just give it to the Donald J. Trump Foundation. Not because he said to, but because he said a charity. And here's one. I found it. It's right next to the guy we were supposed to pay. Epstein could not cite a specific example, except for all of them. They all came in that way. Well, name one. I can't. Okay. That's not really an answer. He then, Epstein, realizing, oh my God, I've just been asked, name one. I can't. Oh yeah? Well, you name one is the answer here. He challenged the Post to find an example that proved him wrong. The Post said, okay, how about the 2011 gift from Comedy Central? Because back then, Trump had bragged on video, oops, he did it again, that he was getting a big appearance fee. They paid me a lot of money, and they were very generous, and all of that money goes to charity, Trump said. After the Post brought up the Comedy Central case during the Saturday interview, Epstein conceded that Trump had indeed controlled where this money went. It was his income. Okay, you caught me. That one, it's his income. But don't worry about it. Epstein says he paid taxes on it. Oh? Can you prove that? Can you provide any proof of that tax payment? Absolutely not, Epstein said. Epstein then challenged the Post to provide another example. Oh yes, you're so smart. You found an example that made me concede that you were right. Do it again. This is the planet these days. So the Post offered donations, of course, recorded from Ebers, the ticket scalper guy, who was the Trump Foundation's biggest donor in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. Altogether, his gifts totaled $1.887 million. At that point, you might as well just add another comma and the 3 zeros and admit that it's $1,887,000. $1.887 million. Never seen it expressed that way, but all right. The two people familiar with that arrangement said Ebers bought tickets and other goods and services from Trump. They said it was unclear if Trump himself or if one of his employees instructed Ebers to pay the foundation instead of Trump. The Post asked Epstein and Hicks, how does she do it, if Trump had paid taxes on the money received from Ebers. They did not answer the question, beyond saying that Trump had followed, quote, all applicable rules and regulations. How does she do it? New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman is investigating the Trump Foundation. If Schneiderman or the IRS were to find that Trump violated tax law, he would face civil penalties, such as fines, from either the state of New York or the IRS. Tax law experts say that more serious charges, such as income tax evasion, because that's what it is, are unfortunately difficult to prove. One reason, in the world of tax law, ignorance is a defense. This is the most heavily defended man in the world when it comes to ignorance. You have to prove that a defendant knew what the law was. Duh, there's no chance of that. And that he willfully violated it anyway, said Jay Nanavati, a former tax prosecutor at the Justice Department, now in private practice. He said that merely proving wrongdoing was not enough. You'll get you the civil penalties on that. A defendant can say, I did all this stuff. I meant to do all this stuff. And either I didn't know it was illegal or a lawyer told me it was okay. And that's all it takes to get away with it, believe it or not. The only formal admission of wrongdoing by the Trump Foundation so far this year came when Trump paid a $2,500 penalty for that illegal $25,000 donation in 2013 to a political group controlled by Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. The foundation had said the gift was an error, and Bondi has said it has no bearing on her office's decision not to pursue a fraud investigation of Trump University. What a squandering that was. During the interview with Epstein on Saturday, the Post asked if the Trump Foundation had self-reported any other violations to the IRS or paid any other penalties. That's not something we're prepared to comment on, he said. And I guess that's the end of the story there. So I think, all in all, I just wanted to add that to the mix because I think that talking to the tax experts cleared things up quite a bit. What's her name? Lynn Patton? Yeah. Now even the Trump campaign admits that she was talking out of her hat, that she had it wrong. So at least we have that to lean on. We were right. They were wrong. But now they, of course, claim they're right again somehow. I don't really know how it all works, but okay. You won't see any criminal charges likely arise out of that. Unless somewhere along the line he brags on tape. He tends to do that in pretty stupid ways. So the connected story that I didn't get to the other day deserves at least some airtime here. Trump used $258,000 from his charity to settle legal problems. By the way, I'll just point this one. I told you I was going to say by the way a lot today. Farron teased everybody yesterday that he had some kind of big breakthrough. And I don't know whether that article that we just read was the one that was coming. Does anybody know if there's yet? I got the sense that there was yet more coming because the editors that he needed the okay from were out of town, so there might be another bombshell today. We'll keep an eye open on that one. So, back on, I don't know when, last week sometime, even before then, I think, prior to last week, 2 weeks ago, Trump used $258,000 from his charity to settle legal problems. Donald Trump spent more than $250,000 from his charitable foundation to settle lawsuits that involved the billionaire's, maybe, for-profit businesses, inuring to his benefit. According to interviews and a review of legal documents, those cases, which together used $258,000 from Trump's charity, were among 4 newly documented expenditures in which Trump may have violated laws against self-dealing, which prohibit nonprofit leaders from using charity money to benefit themselves or their businesses. Do you remember this one? I think I made mention at least of the Mar-a-Lago case. I've certainly referred to it since then. Here's where I need an assistant to tell me, did I read this article or not? Usually I put them in the archive off of my list if I have read them already, but not always. So forgive me if I repeat myself. This is just, and maybe I'll just take this one case. The Mar-a-Lago thing is so perfectly crystalline. Here's from 2007. Trump's Mar-a-Lago club faced $120,000 in unpaid fines from the town of Palm Beach, Florida, resulting from a dispute over the height of a flagpole. In a settlement, Palm Beach agreed to waive those fines. I think they were fining him $1,250 a day for his giant flagpole if Trump's club made a $100,000 donation to a specific charity for veterans. They're directing the money here. They realize it's income to them. Instead, Trump sent the check from the Donald J. Trump Foundation. Mind you, again, they would settle the case and agree to waive the fines if Trump's club, Mar-a-Lago, made a $100,000 donation to a specific charity for veterans. The charity for veterans got the $100,000, but it came from the Donald J. Trump Foundation, a charity funded almost entirely by other people's money, according to tax records. Though, admittedly, this happened in 2007, and the donations were trickling off, but he still had been giving some amount of money. I think it was down to 5 figures by 2008. May even have been 5 figures in 2007 as well. So tail end of the giving period for him. He's got some argument that some of it came from him, but it's $100,000 from the foundation, and he had not given $100,000 in some time. Anyway, the story goes on. In another case, court papers say one of Trump's golf courses in New York agreed to settle a lawsuit by making a donation to the plaintiff's chosen charity. A $158,000 donation was made by the Trump Foundation, according to tax records. And that's a hell of a story, too. I think I mentioned it, but I'll bring it up again because it's so bad. The other expenditures involved smaller amounts. In 2013, Trump used $5,000 from the foundation to buy advertisements touting his chain of hotels and programs for 3 events organized by a D.C. preservation group. In 2014, Trump spent $10,000 of the foundation's money on a portrait of himself bought at a charity fundraiser. That would be the second such portrait. Or rather, on another portrait of himself. Several years earlier, he had paid the speed painter guy. Remember him? David Israel, was it? $20,000? You remember that story. If the IRS were to find that Trump violated self-dealing rules, the agency could require penalties or that he reimbursed the foundation for all the money it spent on his behalf. Trump is also facing scrutiny from the New York State Attorney General's office, which we mentioned in the other story. More broadly, these cases also provide new evidence that Trump ran his charity in a way that may have violated U.S. tax law and gone against the moral conventions of philanthropy, shaking them to their foundations. I represent 700 nonprofits a year, and I've never encountered anything so brazen, said Jeffrey Tenenbaum, who advises charities at the Venable law firm in Washington. After the Washington Post described the details of the Trump Foundation gifts, he described them as really shocking. If he's using other people's money, run through his foundation, to satisfy his personal obligations, then that's about as blatant an example of self-dealing as I've seen in a while, Tenenbaum said. Well, he is. The Post sent the Trump campaign a detailed list of questions about the 4 cases, but received no response. Eventually he did. That's how he got, I think, the interview with Epstein and Hope Hicks. How does she do it? The Trump campaign released a statement about this story late Tuesday that said it was peppered with inaccuracies and omissions. though the statement cited none, and the campaign still has not responded to repeated requests for comment. Then they did, and they also cited none. The New York Attorney General's office declined to comment. When Trump founded this charity in 1987 and for years was its only donor, but in 2006, Trump gave away almost all the money he had donated to the foundation, leaving it with just $4,238 at year's end. So, by 2007, he's emptied the thing out, according to the tax records. When, at that point, he transformed it into something rarely seen in the world of philanthropy, a name-branded foundation whose namesake provides none of its money. Trump gave relatively small donations in 2007 and 2008, and afterward, nothing. The foundation's tax records show no donations from Trump since 2009. Its money has come from other donors, most notably pro wrestling executives Vince and Linda McMahon, who gave a total of $5 million from 2007 to 2009, tax records show. Trump remains the foundation's president, and he told the IRS in his latest public filings that he works about half an hour a week on the charity. The Post has previously detailed other cases in which Trump used the charity's money in a way that appeared to violate the law. There was, of course, the 2013 Pam Bondi story. Tax laws say nonprofit groups such as the Trump Foundation may not make political gifts. Trump staffers, of course, blamed the gift on a clerical error, and they're still involved in that error. In other instances, it appeared Trump may have violated rules against self-dealing, like the Tim Tebow helmet thing, the $20,000 for the 6-foot speed-painted portrait thing. In those cases, tax experts said Trump was not allowed to simply keep those items and display them in a home or business. They had to be put to a charitable use. Trump's campaign has not responded to questions about what became of the helmet or the portrait. The 4 new cases, or ones that were new 2 weeks ago anyway, were discovered in the Trump Foundation's tax filings. While Trump has refused to release his personal tax returns, the Foundation's filings, in order for it to be a tax-exempt organization, are required to be public. The case involving the flagpole at Trump's oceanfront Mar-a-Lago club began in 2006 when the club put up a giant American flag on the 80-foot flagpole. Town rules said flagpoles should be 42 feet high at most. He doubles it. Trump's contention, according to the news reports, was, you don't need a permit to put up the American flag. I'm not going to stand here and listen to you badmouth the United States of America. Right? That's the argument. The town began to fine Trump $1,250 a day. Trump's club sued in federal court, saying that a smaller flag, quote, would fail to appropriately express the magnitude of Donald J. Trump's patriotism. Gentlemen, they settled. Okay, fine. That's up to them. The town waived the $120,000 in fines. In September 2007, Trump wrote the town a letter saying he had done his part as well. He says, I have sent a check for $100,000 to Fisher House. He wrote, the town had chosen Fisher House, which runs a network of comfort homes for the families of veterans and military personnel receiving medical treatment, as the recipient of the money. Trump added that for good measure, I have sent the check for $25,000 to another charity, the American Veterans Disabled for Life Memorial. Trump provided the town with copies of the checks, which show that they came from the Trump Foundation. In Palm Beach, nobody seems to have objected to the fines assessed on Trump's businesses being erased by a donation from a charity. I don't know that there was any attention paid to that at the time. We just saw 2 checks signed by Donald J. Trump, said John Randolph, the Palm Beach town attorney. I'm sure we were satisfied with it. In the other case, in which the Trump Foundation payment seemed to help settle a legal dispute, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if there's more commentary on this or not. But before I get to this second story, I want to point out what ended up happening here is the town fines Mar-a-Lago. And the town says, we'll stop fining you $1,250 a day and we'll waive all the previous fees if Mar-a-Lago donates $100,000 to Fisher House. And that was the terms of the settlement. He has not satisfied the terms of that settlement. They were fooled into believing he did, but he hasn't. Technically, I think, if you're interested, people in the town of Palm Beach, the town could arguably go back to court and say, hey, he never settled this. He owes us $1,250 a day retroactive to 2006. That's $4.5 million, I think I calculated the other day. There's a $4.5 million payday in this for them. And who knows what else they might be able to get for him, punitively speaking, for having fooled everybody and stolen all this money. And why not get interest on the $4.5 million as well? It's a complicated calculation, but somebody with a computer can do it. There could be $5 million in this. Now, Trump should settle with them for another $2.5 million to get them off his back. This could be worth several $1 million to the town if they just check their paperwork. If it said in the agreement that Donald J. Trump personally or that Mar-a-Lago somehow as an entity was going to contribute that $100,000, you got him dead to rights. Go get your money. So here's the other case, because it's so ludicrous. I'll add this one. In 2010, a man named Martin Greenberg hit a hole-in-one on the 13th hole while playing in a charity golf tournament at Trump's course in Westchester County, New York. Greenberg won a $1 million prize, briefly. You know, if you've ever been in a charity golf tournament, you see those things all the time. I've never seen a $1 million prize offered for a hole-in-one. But, closest to the pin wins a golf bag or a hat, or, sometimes a $100 gift certificate to whatever. Occasionally it's stuff like that. I play in very cheap charity tournaments. I guess if you're playing in one at Trump's course, it's flashy, you offer that, whatever. Now, that's a big risk. Hole-in-one, relatively rare among amateurs at a charity golf tournament, though. So it's a decent bet, but it's a little extravagant. Why would Donald Trump do it? Well, he loves extravagance, right? Well, there's more reasons to do it than just that. I said that Farenthold had written, I guess, that Greenberg won the $1 million prize briefly. Later, Greenberg was told that he had won nothing. You get nothing. Good day, sir. Where's my, need that one. Sorry.
Wrong, sir. Wrong.
I just said the wrong. It's, where is that one? It's in the long version.
Wrong,
right?
sir. Wrong. It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
We missed Gene. Okay. Well, at any rate, Greenberg was told he won nothing. The prize's rules required that the shot had to go 150 yards, but Trump's course had allegedly made the hole too short. You can move the tee box up and cut the hole closer. So even if the hole is 155 yards normally, you can reconfigure it so that it's 149 yards without anybody being any the wiser, especially as the signage will still say it's 155 yards. And technically, you only made a 149-yard shot, and so there was never any risk of losing the $1 million. It was all for show and all a fraud. But charity golf tournament, rich people playing in it, who even cares, etc., right? So we never make a big deal out of it. Eventually, Greenberg sues, and the court papers show that Trump's golf course signed off on a settlement that required it to make a donation to a group of Greenberg's choosing. He's assigning the income, right? Then, on the day that the parties informed the court that they had settled their case, a $158,000 donation was sent to the Martin Greenberg Foundation. Don't feel too bad for Mr. Martin Greenberg and not winning the $1 million prize for the hole-in-one, although as exciting as that may have been, that Martin Greenberg has a Martin Greenberg Foundation. I don't know what he does with it. The fact that he assigned the prize to it it certainly raises eyebrows in the context of this story. He may give it all to charity, and it may all be on the up and up. I thought that was a little interesting twist to the whole thing. That money, $158,000 though, came from the Trump Foundation, not Trump himself or the golf course or the organizing committee for the event. So, Greenberg's foundation reported getting nothing that year from Trump personally or from his golf club. Both Greenberg and Trump have declined to comment, and several tax experts said the two cases appeared to be clear examples of self-dealing, as defined by the tax code. The Trump Foundation had made a donation, it seemed, so that a Trump business would not have to. Rosemary E. Fei, or possibly Fei, F-E-I, a lawyer in San Francisco who advises nonprofit groups, said both cases clearly fit the definition of self-dealing. Yes, Trump pledged as part of the settlement to make a payment to a charity. And yes, the foundation is writing a check to a charity, she said, but the obligation was Trump's, not the foundation's. And you can't have a charitable foundation paying off Trump's personal obligations. That would be classic self-dealing. And then there was yet another instance here. 2013, the Trump Foundation made a $5,000 donation, a small one, to the D.C. Preservation League. Why? Old post office. According to the group, the nonprofits group's support had been helpful for Trump as he turned the historic old post office pavilion on Pennsylvania Avenue into a new luxury hotel, which sucks. The Trump Foundation's donation to that group bought a sponsorship, which included advertising space in the programs for 3 big events that drew Washington's real estate elite. The ads did not mention the foundation or anything related to the charity. Instead, they promoted Trump's hotels with glamorous photos and a phone number to call to make a reservation. The foundation, the charity, wrote a check that essentially bought advertising for Trump hotels, asked John Eady, the longtime general counsel for the Council on Foundations. 2 different spellings of counsel there. When a Post reporter described this arrangement, he said, that's not charity. The last of the 4 newly documented expenditures involves the second painting of Trump, which he bought with charity money. It happened in 2014 during a gala at Mar-a-Lago. They raised money for Unicorn Children's Foundation, a Florida charity that helps children with developmental and learning disorders. Did he donate the space at Mar-a-Lago? You tell me. The gala's main event was a concert by John Cicada. Have I pronounced that right? He's probably famous. But there was also an auction of paintings by Javi Shanz, a Miami-based artist. And it's not a terrific portrait, but, Shanz did a fine job. One was of Marilyn Monroe. The other was a 4-foot-tall portrait of Trump, a younger-looking mid-90s Trump, by the way, painted in acrylic on top of an old architectural drawing. Why? I don't know. Art. Trump bought it for $10,000. Why? I don't know. Art. Afterward, Shanz recalled in an email, he asked me about the painting. I said, I paint souls. What? All right. Art. And when I had to paint you, I asked your soul to allow me. He was touched and smiled. A few days later, the charity said a check came from the Trump Foundation. Trump himself gave nothing, according to Sharon Alexander, the executive director of the charity. Trump's staff did not respond to questions about where that second painting is now. I think they found it eventually. Alexander said she had last seen it at Trump's club. Pretty sure we just left it at Mar-a-Lago, she said, and his staff took care of it. The website TripAdvisor provides another clue. On a page for Trump's Doral Golf Resort near Miami, users posted photos from inside the club. One of them appears to show Shanz's painting hanging on the wall in the resort. The date on the photo was February 2016, so no incentive to just get famous on the back of this piece, right? Very interesting use of that money. Glad we have those details on the record. I think we'll be referring back to it an awful lot. There's more. Just you wait. Let's see what else we might add to this. By the way, I have a couple other comments on the debate, such as it was, to add here. Yuri, who watching in Canada, notes in Canadian fashion, like a toddler on a toboggan, Trump held on tight to his ride. Racist attacks, xenophobia, misogynist, hullabaloo. It was, in fact, deplorable. I agree. And Justice's own contribution to that. Rather than sniffles, Hillary reduced Trump to a sniveling blowhard. The stellar reviews continue to roll in. All right. Let's see. Got so many more fun things to add to this. Let me grab Joan's thing. I guess she'll be on tomorrow. I guess maybe we'll save that for tomorrow because then we can talk a little bit about it. But if you haven't seen it, Joan picked up on last night and covered immediately the not paying taxes makes me smart thing. So we'll discuss that a little bit tomorrow. I put it aside for discussion today because we love finally referring back to Daily Kos and what's on the front page there. But since Joan will be here tomorrow, and I'd love to continue bashing Donald Trump tomorrow, and I'm always looking for an excuse to do that, we'll save that one because there's more commentary to add to on that one. By the way, I guess it's just like the 9th time I've said by the way. That's the new at any rate. At any rate, by the way, also too, so needed in this country. This is probably one of the more ludicrous angles on last night's post-debate spin. I saw this one retweeted from I don't know who because I'm not following John Passantino, but maybe I should. John Passantino is deputy news director at BuzzFeed News. And despite it all, I think I, in the end, on balance, enjoy BuzzFeed News. I think I want very badly not to, but it's not working. They're doing too good a job. I'm having too much fun reading their stuff. John tweeted this one. Trump said his debate microphone was defective, and he questions whether that was on purpose. That's John saying that it came via the AP. And here's a screen grab of it. Donald Trump is suggesting his microphone in the debate hall wasn't working properly. And by the way, debate in the AP report is a linked term. AP, that's on the cutting edge of internet technology. You want to know what a debate is or see reports about the debate? Go click on this. Thanks a lot. So he actually did this. Trump visited the media spin room after the Monday night debate and said, "They gave me a defective mic." He said he wonders, was that on purpose? Trump's claim about the microphone is far from the first time he has suggested that outside forces have conspired against him. He has several times warned his supporters that he believed he could lose in November because the general election would be rigged. That leads us back to the fact that Lester Holt had to spend the last question on, will you accept the legitimacy of American democracy at the end of all this, even if you lose? That was, again, a rather remarkable moment. By the way, that's not even certainly not the pettiest of his claims that outside forces have conspired against him. Remember all the charges for a couple days in a row he was insisting the United States fire marshals across the country were conspiring against him to keep large crowds out of his event. That at one point he insisted that at one of his events, so many people were turned away at the doors because of the corrupt fire marshals that a crowd of, and he put a number on it, and as it turned out, he had ended up claiming that a crowd, the people turned away, was a crowd larger than had witnessed Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech during the March on Washington. Do you remember that one? I do. Anyway, so that's what he's up there doing now, saying I had a defective debate microphone, which I guess you could think was the case because the way things are calibrated. When you're on stage and you speak into the microphone and the sound is directed away from you to the audience, or even if it's not directed anywhere, it's just piped to the TV. It comes through loud and clear on TV for us at home, but it might not sound like it's coming through loud and clear, especially if you're trying to cut in and interrupt. It doesn't sound like you're projecting yourself the way you were hoping, and that's what he thought was defective because other people just talked over him, but they were trained to talk over him. Lester Holt, trained to kind of stay in the background a little bit. I give him a mixed review on moderating, I guess, if only because at one point I actually said, oh, he did a good job stomping on Trump there and just starting into the next topic. The big problem between Lester Holt and Donald Trump last night was that Trump kept saying, to his credit, he's seen enough debates to know that you can do this. He say, Lester, I think I should have the right to respond to that. And Lester Holt would say 20 seconds because he wanted to move on to the next topic. And he'd grant him 20 seconds and like 5, 10, 15 times he'd say 20 seconds to Trump, and Trump would have nothing to do with the 20-second thing. He didn't even make an effort to get to beginning his point anywhere near the 20-second limit. And he'd just go on. And really, Holt at some point probably should have said, I'm not going to grant you rebuttal time. I have given you 20 seconds to respond to those issues like 5 times, and you've ignored the limit every time. We're moving on to the next topic. But the time he would spend saying that, Trump would just start interrupting and trying to talk. But that's probably the origin of that. That's why Trump thinks his microphone was defective. Hillary trained not to let him do that, and not to give when he started interrupting and talking over her, but to simply up it a little bit herself and keep going. And I think Holt largely did the same. When he wanted to resist, he kind of sort of did. But on net, he was pretty absent on that. Although he did do a little fact checking, a little more than anybody thought he was going to do, given the way the debate went in the last couple of days. He definitely called out falsehoods pretty directly in at least a few situations, maybe not in every single situation. I also found it interesting that Donald Trump took it upon himself to fact check Lester Holt once or twice and say, you're wrong, it's not true. I did, especially on the Iraq issue. That did not fly very well, and I don't think fighting with Lester Holt did him any favors. Also, fighting with him on the constitutionality of stop and frisk and the direction that crime statistics are going. It wasn't a good look for him. That's for sure. But speaking of the interruptions, I've got another thing here. I mean, maybe we can spend the last couple minutes on that one. There's who did this? Mike magazine had a piece here, and we'll just add it into the mix, a video. Here's what it's like to be interrupted 28 times during a debate. Let's turn up the sound on this one.
You know, I have a much better.
So here's what it's like. Here we go. 2 minutes worth of this.
Well, it did collapse.
That's called business, buddy.
I think it's real.
I did not. I do not say that.
And create more new jobs.
Well, you haven't done it in 30 years or 26 years.
Well, I've been a senator.
You haven't done it.
And I have been a Secretary of State, and I have
Your husband signed.
Listen to that, by the way, the excuse me. He's the one interrupting, and he's like, excuse me, it's my time. It's not your time. And this is probably, I mean, in this one he got responded to, but a lot of these she blows right by, and I think he
Which
thinks
was one
that's
of the worst
why
things
his
that
microphone
ever
wasn't
happened.
working.
You called it the gold standard.
Well, I hope
you called it the gold standard of trade deals.
I wrote about that.
So is it President Obama's fault?
$5 trillion to the debt.
But you have no plan.
Charges and claims.
On to number
and
10.
so
Facts.
we have to take a look. Because
And take a look at mine also, and you'll see.
Let me say,
there's nothing crazy about not letting our companies bring their money back into their country.
This is Secretary Clinton's 2 minutes, please.
He didn't pay any federal income tax. So
That makes
if
me
he's
smart.
paid, I made a mistake using a private email.
That's for sure.
The other thing I think is important.
It would be
to point out
squandered too,
is-
believe me.
And you wouldn't pay what the man needed to be paid, what he was charging.
Maybe he didn't do a good job, and I was unsatisfied with his work, which our country should do too.
You even at one time suggested that you would try to negotiate down the national debt of the United States. Crime has continued to drop, including murders. So there is.
You're wrong.
No, I'm not.
Murders are up.
Donald supported the invasion
Murders
of Iraq.
are up, everybody.
That is absolutely
Wrong.
proved over and over again.
Wrong.
I'd blow them out of the water and start another war. That
would
not
start a
good
war.
judgment. That is not the right temperament to be commander-in-chief. You know, that's fine. You know, have a good time, folks. And in fact, Donald, she has a name.
Where did you find
her
it?
name
Where
is
did you find
Alicia
it?
Machado.
Where did you find
and
it?
she has become a U.S. citizen, and you can bet she's going to vote.
Yeah,
this
really.
November.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. All right, so that'll be great. Okay, good, right. Well, she really is an actual U.S. citizen, and guess what? She really is likely going to vote. I'm pretty damn sure she's going to be voting against you. Let me turn the sound down a little bit again with a couple of shots at the keyboard here. That was pretty amazing, and what a compilation. Okay, well, we're getting near the end of the program for the day, so we got plenty more to go on that front, but still want to share one or two things here. I don't have anything on the substance of this story, but I just wanted to bring this one up. Paul LePage is a crazy idiot from Maine. He's currently the governor there. We've spent an awful lot of time on him. And so you know from listening long-term to the show that there was a point at which LePage insisted that the enormous drug problems that they had, particularly in parts of rural Maine, was, despite the fact that Maine is, 98% white, was all black people's fault. Because guys named Shifty and G-Money and whatever would come up to Maine and impregnate the white women and sell all the drugs and everything. It was incredibly racist, incredibly stupid thing to do and things to say. I just wanted to note this, and we'll grab some reporting on it, I hope, to share in more detail later on. But I grabbed 2 tweets from Michael Shepard. Michael Shepard is a reporter for the Bangor Daily News. And he's got this. As it turns out, the state put together a report of some kind on drug defendants in Maine, and basically who's being arrested for this stuff, who's doing what on that front. Well, at some point the state released a binder, as they put it, 148 pages on the various defendants facing drug charges, I guess currently in Maine, and he shared it. He parked it on Google Drive and allowed everybody to take a look at what the state was actually facing inside the criminal justice system. His initial look through it, by the way, he says, my first count, 93 drug defendants are pictured in LePage's binder. 57 of them are apparently white, or we can only say apparently. You can never tell exactly without interviewing people and asking them, well, how do you identify, I suppose. But 57 out of 93, that'll seal the deal in terms of the majority, of course. It's not all of them, but it's a considerably higher number of white people than Paul LePage led on. Essentially, LePage is ridiculous, stupid, wrong, and racist to boot, and I just wanted to note that for the record. I'm sure we can dig a little further into it as the week goes on, but I wanted to cram that one in there because it's as good as ending as any. Might as well note one more time that it's not just Donald Trump. Up and down the Republican ticket, crazy idiots will be enabled if Donald Trump were to win. And even if he were to lose, why enable crazy idiots all over the country, or even not particularly crazy idiots, but just jerky idiots who pretend they have nothing to do with Donald Trump, like, various folks running for Congress, say right here in Virginia's 10th district, who have very close relationships with the Trump organization and take their money all the time, but insist instead that they have nothing to do with them, and I never heard of the guy, and please just let me back into Congress anyway. The cure for that problem, Luann Bennett for Congress in Virginia's 10th district. Thanks very much. Okay, moving on to what's coming up next on the After Show's Red Sky at Morning Tuesday program. A Florida religious group is pushing for a ballot initiative to classify abortion as first-degree murder, making women and their doctors eligible for the death penalty because pro-life. Of course, the Supreme Court could decide in a pending corruption case if judges are for sale, and I hope so. And the Obama administration has been waging a battle to save the earth from Scalia's ghost. Love to hear more about that. Plus, of course, Chris Reeves for news about Chris Kobach facing a contempt hearing for failure to comply with a court order.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Thanks for listening. Of course, there will be more debate analysis to come, no doubt about that, on the After Show. And in case you were just wondering maybe what was going on here in Virginia's 10th District and who you should be conspiring to help Luann Bennett defeat, it's Barbara Comstock.